The shift begins the moment you stop reaching, when your energy settles back into you, quiet, unmoved. You feel it first as stillness, others feel it as gravity. And without saying a word, the way you're perceived changes. You're no longer trying to be understood. You're no longer managing outcomes. That absence does something subtle to the human mind, especially to those who are emotionally intuitive. Silence creates interpretation. Restraint creates tension. And composure signals a power that doesn't ask to be noticed. Most men never experience this shift because they're taught to pursue, explain, prove. You're about to see why letting go isn't weakness, it's command. A psychological reorientation that changes how you move, how you're read, and how others adjust around you. If this resonates, take a moment to support the message. Subscribe, like, or leave a comment so it reaches men who need this clarity. Because what you're about to understand isn't about attraction. It's about identity. Stay with me. The principle that makes this inevitable is about to unfold. You move through the world differently now. Not faster, not louder, just less available. Your shoulders don't lean forward anymore. Your gaze doesn't search for permission. There's a pause in you, barely noticeable, but unmistakable. Like the calm before weather changes. In a crowded room, you don't scan for reactions. You don't track expressions. You stand where you are, fully there, as if the moment bends slightly around your presence. Conversations pass through you instead of pulling you in. Words arrive and you let them land. You don't rush to answer. You don't decorate your silence, you allow it to exist. That's when something quiet begins to happen. People lean in without realizing they've moved. Questions come to you uninvited. There's a subtle recalibration in the air, like a compass correcting itself. Not because you demanded attention, but because you stopped chasing it. You remember the old reflex, the urge to fill space, to explain yourself before being misunderstood, to offer reassurance before anyone asked. That reflex felt like engagement, like connection, but beneath it was a leak, energy flowing outward, always outward. And the world learned to receive without returning. Letting go sealed the leak. You didn't withdraw in bitterness. You didn't harden. You simply stopped exporting your center. You kept it. And in doing so, you became harder to read, yet easier to feel. There's a moment, small, almost forgettable, where someone tests this new stillness. A glance held half a second longer than before. A question asked, then quickly rephrased. A step forward that wasn't planned. Instinct responds before logic catches up. The nervous system recognizes containment. It reads steadiness as capacity. You don't notice it at first. You're too busy standing inside yourself. This is the paradox most men miss. The less you signal, the more you're interpreted. The fewer explanations you offer, the more meaning others assign. Absence doesn't erase you. It outlines you. You walk past a reflection and barely recognize the man looking back. Not because you've changed your appearance, but because your posture tells a different story now. There's no performance in it. No plea, just presence. Calm, unnegotiated. And somewhere between that calm and the world's response, a quiet realization takes hold. Nothing was ever wrong with your intensity. It was your direction. When intensity turns inward, it becomes gravity. You begin to see how often the world rewards the man who doesn't flinch, who doesn't rush to clarify, who can let a moment hang without grabbing it. Power doesn't announce itself. It waits. It allows others to come to terms with it on their own. And they do. But the deeper truth, the one that changes everything, has nothing to do with how others respond. It's what happens inside you when you realize you no longer need the response to be whole. That realization is where the real shift completes itself. Stay with me. The next turn reveals why this inner stillness reshapes not just how you're seen, but how you choose to move from here on out. You begin to notice the difference in the smallest moments, places most men overlook because they're too busy trying to control outcomes. A conversation stalls, and you don't rush to revive it. You let the silence stretch, not as a tactic, but as a statement. In that space, you feel your own breath, slow, grounded, unconcerned with filling the void. The other person shifts first. They always do. Silence, when held without anxiety, becomes a mirror. It reflects back whatever someone brings into it. You used to mistake engagement for value. You thought presence meant effort. But now you see the distinction. Effort leaks. Presence concentrates. This shift didn't arrive all at once. It came quietly, through restraint. Through moments where you chose not to react. Through times you felt the impulse to reach, and didn't. Each time you held that line, something inside you hardened into shape. Not coldness, structure. You start walking away from moments that once consumed you. Not dramatically, just without explanation. No final words, no emotional punctuation. You leave conversations unfinished because you no longer need closure from outside yourself. And strangely, those unfinished moments linger longer in other people's minds than any carefully delivered speech ever did. There's a subtle power reversal here, one that doesn't announce itself. When you stop asking to be understood, others begin trying to understand you. When you stop chasing alignment, people adjust their position around you. Not consciously, instinctively. You see it in the eyes before you hear it in words. Eyes tell the truth before language intervenes. A flicker of curiosity. A pause that wasn't there before. A glance returned twice, as if something was missed the first time. Emotional intuition is sharp. It senses when a man is anchored to himself versus orbiting around reactions. You don't capitalize on it. That's the point. You remain unchanged. Your tone doesn't shift. Your posture doesn't lean in. You don't reward the moment with urgency. You let it pass through you the same way you let everything else pass now, with composure. This is where most men break. They feel the shift and rush to claim it. They reach again, eager to convert tension into certainty. You don't. You let tension breathe. You understand now that tension isn't discomfort, it's potential. There's a scene that repeats itself in different forms. You're standing still while someone else fills the space with motion. They speak more than necessary. They clarify. They laugh a little louder. You listen, fully, without nodding too much, without reassuring them they're being received. It's not dominance. It's self-possession. You begin to understand something ancient, something men once learned early but now rarely encounter. Power grows in what you can withhold, not what you display. Words, emotion, availability. All of it carries weight only when it's not freely given. You don't become distant, you become deliberate. And that deliberateness changes your internal rhythm. You stop anticipating reactions. You stop replaying moments in your mind. The mental noise that once followed every interaction fades. In its place is a steady internal climate, unchanging, regardless of who enters or leaves your field. The steadiness becomes addictive. Not in a reckless way, but in a grounding one. You realize how much of your life was spent oscillating, up when validated, down when ignored. Now the baseline holds, high, quiet, firm. Others feel that baseline long before they understand it. They test it without meaning to. A delayed response, a subtle challenge, a moment of emotional unpredictability. You don't flinch, you don't counter, you don't chase resolution. You let their behavior reveal itself against your stillness. Stillness always wins that comparison. What you're learning now is not how to attract, but how to remain sovereign. Attraction is merely a side effect of sovereignty, a ripple caused by a man who no longer negotiates with his own center. You catch yourself smiling at moments that once triggered urgency, not out of arrogance, but recognition. You've seen this pattern before. You know where it leads, and you know you don't need to follow. This is the quiet luxury of self-command, the ability to stay exactly where you are while the world recalibrates around you. But there's a deeper layer beneath even this. One most men never reach because it requires letting go of something far more seductive than approval. In the next movement, you'll see why the final release isn't external at all, and why the man who understands this becomes untouchable, regardless of who comes or goes. Don't move. The real principle is about to surface. There comes a moment when you realize the shift was never meant to be maintained through effort. Effort implies tension, and tension implies fear of loss. What you've stepped into now doesn't require vigilance, it requires alignment. You stop monitoring yourself. You no longer ask whether you're holding frame, staying detached, remaining composed. That internal checking dissolves, and with it goes the last trace of performance. What remains is something quieter and far more difficult to imitate: consistency. Your emotional state no longer negotiates with circumstance. Praise doesn't lift you. Distance doesn't diminish you. You don't tighten when interest appears, and you don't loosen when it fades. Your inner posture stays the same. Calm becomes your baseline, not as armor, but as atmosphere. This is where most men fall away, because many can practice restraint briefly. Few can live inside it without waiting for a reward. They want proof, confirmation, a visible return on their discipline, a sign that the world has noticed. You've moved past that hunger. You no longer look outward for evidence that the shift is working. You feel it working because nothing inside you needs to move anymore. Interactions begin to simplify. Not because people become easier, but because you stop complicating them with projection. You hear what's said without searching for subtext. You notice what's done without inventing motives. You let behavior exist without correcting it in your mind. That clarity sharpens your perception. You sense when energy approaches before words arrive. You feel when someone is unsettled, not by you directly, but by how little they can access you emotionally. Stillness has a way of amplifying contrast. When you are grounded, every imbalance becomes visible. You don't fix it. You don't soothe it. You don't capitalize on it. You let it reveal itself. This is the final inversion most men never reach. The moment you stop trying to be powerful, power begins to use you as its structure. You become a fixed point. Others orbit without realizing they've adjusted their trajectory. Some move closer, curious, drawn by what they can't immediately read. Others drift away, uncomfortable with the lack of emotional hooks. You respond to both the same way, neutrally. You no longer interpret interest as opportunity or distance as loss. You understand now that alignment doesn't require persuasion. What belongs will remain without force. What doesn't will separate without drama. You don't chase clarity anymore, you allow time to provide it. That patience becomes unmistakable. People feel it before they understand it. There's a sense of safety around you, not the comforting kind that invites dependence, but the grounding kind that encourages honesty. Some feel unsettled for the same reason. Truth without cushioning disrupts those accustomed to emotional noise. You don't soften yourself to be digestible. You don't sharpen yourself to dominate. You remain exact. And that exactness does something profound to the subconscious. It removes the usual reference points. There's nothing to negotiate with. No emotional leverage. No visible hunger. No reactive edge. So others recalibrate internally instead. Conversations slow around you. Questions become more deliberate. Emotional displays temper themselves in your presence. You've become a regulating force, not because you manage the room, but because you no longer need the room to manage you. This is what the old philosophers meant by freedom. Not freedom from people, not freedom from desire, but freedom from disturbance. When nothing external can rush you, flatter you, or destabilize you, you become immune to influence without ever resisting it. Manipulation loses traction where there is no internal urgency to exploit. That immunity is silent, invisible, complete, and now you understand the true cost of letting go. You don't just lose the urge to chase, you lose the desire to be chased. Validation no longer excites you. Attention no longer intoxicates you. You recognize both for what they are, temporary signals, not sources. You move when movement feels aligned, not because stillness feels empty. This is where solitude transforms. It stops feeling like absence and starts feeling like surplus. You're no longer alone with yourself. You're complete with yourself. The internal dialogue quiets. The need to narrate your life fades. Presence becomes enough. You stand inside that completeness now, undivided, unrushed, untethered from expectation. From this place, every connection becomes optional, not because you don't value others, but because you no longer need them to confirm your position in the world. You offer presence without attachment, engagement without dependence. That is the final transformation, not attraction, not control, but sovereignty. And once you've experienced that state, even briefly, you'll never confuse attention for power again. You'll know the difference instinctively, and you'll move through the world accordingly.